You call yourself disciplined, but your impulses still control you. Until your restraint feels threatening, you remain predictable, safe, and harmless in a world that rewards calculated brutality. You were taught that discipline is self-improvement. Wake up early, eat clean, stay consistent, smile while doing it. That version of discipline is designed to make you functional, not dangerous. Functional men are tolerated. Dangerous men are respected. The comfort lens you inherited defines discipline as productivity wrapped in virtue. It tells you that if you master your habits, you will be rewarded with stability, admiration, and peace. That narrative is engineered for compliance. It produces reliable workers, predictable partners, manageable competitors. It does not produce men who shift the emotional temperature of a room. Severe discipline is not about optimization. It is about subtraction. It removes the visible cravings that make you readable. It erases the emotional leaks that others use to map you. It eliminates the micro-reactions that reveal your dependency on approval. Most men practice surface control. They control diet, gym attendance, maybe their schedule. They do not control expression. They still laugh too quickly, respond too fast, explain too much, reveal intention before it matures. They are disciplined in routine, undisciplined in presence. Presence is what unnerves people. When your face does not rush to validate, when your voice does not rise to compete, when your emotions do not spike on cue, people begin recalculating. The comfort lens says discipline should make you likable. The severe lens says discipline should make you unreadable. There is a difference. Likable men are absorbed into systems. Unreadable men alter systems. You have been trained to associate warmth with strength, to believe that calmness must be soft, that composure must be friendly. But in nature, the most composed predator does not announce itself with intensity. It waits. It measures. It conserves motion. Severe discipline is conservation of reaction. Every reaction you suppress increases perceived depth. Every impulse you deny increases internal authority. This is not self-help. This is hierarchy physics. Humans constantly scan for volatility and neediness. The man who reacts quickly signals internal instability. The man who restrains reaction signals control over himself and, by extension, potential control over outcomes. Control unsettles, because most people are governed by appetite for validation, appetite for stimulation, appetite for reassurance. When they encounter someone who visibly operates without those appetites, they're nervous. System cannot categorize him easily. He does not beg. He does not chase. He does not flinch. That ambiguity creates pressure. Severe discipline is the refusal to relieve that pressure. You do not explain your silence. You do not justify your boundaries. You do not soften your refusals. The comfort lens tells you to communicate more so others feel safe. The severe lens understands that safety is leverage. If everyone feels comfortable around you, you are not a threat. If no one is slightly uncertain around you, you are transparent. Forge discipline that changes the way people measure their words around you. This begins with one internal shift. Stop seeing discipline as something you perform. Start seeing it as something you weaponize. You are not trying to become better. You are trying to become harder to manipulate. That requires restraint that feels unnatural at first, delayed responses, reduced emotional display, controlled eye contact, measured speech. Not exaggerated dominance. Not theatrical aggression. Precision. You are carving away excess reaction until what remains is calculated stillness. Stillness makes noise in other people's heads. They begin wondering what you are thinking. They begin questioning whether you approve. They begin adjusting behavior without you asking. That is the first fracture in the power dynamic. Severe discipline does not scream. It does not argue. It does not persuade. It observes. And when necessary, it acts once. If your discipline does not alter how others behave around you, it is decorative. Break the comfort lens. Discipline is not self-care. It is controlled severity. Controlled severity is not about intensity. It is about regulation so tight that other people feel it. Most men misunderstand dominance. They believe dominance is volume, aggression, visible, confidence. That is amateur theater. Theater attracts attention. It also reveals insecurity. True pressure is quiet. Controlled severity operates through one mechanism: uncertainty combined with restraint. Human beings are prediction machines. Every interaction is an unconscious calculation. How will he respond? How far can I go? Where is the boundary? When you react quickly, you reduce uncertainty. When you explain yourself, you reduce uncertainty. When you seek harmony, you reduce uncertainty. And when uncertainty disappears, so does tension. Tension is leverage. A severely disciplined man does not eliminate tension. He maintains it through controlled response timing and emotional neutrality. He does not reward behavior instantly. He does not punish impulsively. He does not clarify prematurely. He forces others to sit inside ambiguity. Ambiguity triggers internal discomfort. The brain fills silence with projection. If you do not react, people begin interpreting. If you do not reassure, they begin adjusting. If you do not validate, they begin qualifying themselves. This is not manipulation. It is structural advantage. When your reactions are scarce, they gain weight. When your approval is rare, it gains value. When your anger is controlled, it gains consequence. Scarcity creates psychological gravity. Most men flood the environment with emotion. They overshare, overreact, overcommit. Their responses are cheap because they are constant. Cheap signals do not move hierarchy. Severe discipline makes your signals expensive. You respond slower than expected. You speak less than required. You reveal less than requested. Each reduction increases perceived depth. There is another layer. Controlled severity rewires your own nervous system. When you repeatedly deny impulse, the urge to check your phone, to defend yourself, to interrupt, to seek comfort, you build internal command pathways. You prove to yourself that desire is not authority. That internal proof changes posture. You stop leaning forward for approval. You stop smiling to ease tension. You stop apologizing for presence. The body reflects internal command before the mind consciously registers it. Shoulders stabilize. Eye movement slows. Micro expressions decrease. You become less reactive to environmental noise. People read this subconsciously. In evolutionary terms, the organism that conserves energy while maintaining alertness signals capability. The organism that burns energy in constant reaction signals vulnerability. Controlled severity is energy conservation under pressure. You are not suppressing emotion because you are numb. You are containing emotion because you are strategic. Containment suggests capacity. When someone insults you and you do not immediately defend, you create dissonance. They expect friction. You offer stillness. Their aggression loses target. They begin recalculating risk. When someone tests your boundary and you respond once, calmly, firmly, without escalation, and then disengage, you signal finality, not drama, not negotiation. Finality intimidates. Inconsistent men threaten loudly. Disciplined men conclude quietly. Controlled severity also disrupts social scripts. Society runs on predictable emotional exchange. Joke, laugh, criticize, defend, praise, glow. When you break these scripts, people cannot automate their behavior around you. Automation is comfort. Disruption is authority. This is why severe discipline unnerves people. It forces consciousness. They cannot relax into habitual patterns. They must think before speaking. They must measure before acting. You become a variable that requires caution, and caution equals respect. But understand the cost. To maintain controlled severity, you must tolerate being misunderstood. You must endure being labeled distant, intense, cold. Most men collapse here. They soften to restore social ease. That is the trap. The moment you rush to clarify your intentions so others feel safe, you surrender leverage. Severe discipline is the willingness to let people feel slight discomfort around your presence, without rescuing them from it. Because the one who rescues comfort becomes dependent on acceptance. The one who withholds comfort dictates the emotional climate. Controlled severity is climate control. You are no longer reacting to temperature. You are setting it. Before you can forge true severity, you must recognize the men you surpass, the archetypes, who fail under minimal pressure. Identification is the first surgical strike on complacency. The pleaser is the man whose identity hinges on approval. He smiles too quickly, apologizes too often, and bends instinctively to avoid conflict. Every interaction is a negotiation of his own value. His discipline is performative. It exists to be seen, not felt. When confronted with controlled severity, he panics. He cannot compute stillness, neutrality, or delayed response. He reacts, overshares, and exposes himself immediately. The reactor is the emotional puppet. Small provocations trigger outsized responses, anger, laughter, panic, or defense. His discipline is a facade, a surface routine unconnected to his impulses. He has no internal governor. He mirrors others' moods because he cannot tolerate his own. To a severely disciplined man, the reactor is predictable. Every movement, every inflection can be anticipated and leveraged. The reactor feeds your power without knowing it. The performer is the man who dresses and acts to impress. His life is a stage, and every habit, every action, every word is curated for visibility. He mistakes visibility for authority. His discipline is vanity masquerading as rigor. The performed discipline collapses the moment it is unobserved. A performer cannot withstand sustained absence of attention. In the presence of controlled severity, he grows anxious. His rehearsed behaviors falter. He seeks validation, longer provide. Recognition of these archetypes serves multiple purposes. First, it allows you to map the environment. When you encounter these men, you instantly know how they will respond. Pleaser will overcompensate. The reactor will overreact. The performer will overexpose himself. This mapping is not empathy, it is intelligence gathering. Second, understanding archetypes forces self-diagnosis. Which of these patterns do you share? Even slight traces of pleaser tendencies, eagerness to explain, need to justify, premature, emotional release, create vulnerability. Even a shadow of reactor habits, impatience, defensiveness, emotional spikes reduces your leverage. Even minor performer traits, desire for recognition, need to appear impressive, make you readable. The goal is elimination. You are not simply better than these men. You are different in kind. Controlled severity requires internalization of their failures. You cannot survive if any trace of these archetypes persists. There is also a social function. Humans instinctively compare themselves to peers. When you Move among these archetypes, your restraint becomes a spotlight. Their instability amplifies. Your quiet authority, a single withheld reaction from you becomes an event. A brief silence, a measured glance, a delayed gesture. These small signals are magnified against the backdrop of reactive men. In evolutionary terms, these archetypes are low-ranking nodes in any social hierarchy. Consume energy, broadcast weakness, and obey scripts. You are being trained to operate outside the scripts. You exist where they cannot reach, where their predictable patterns are irrelevant. Your discipline renders their presence secondary, almost irrelevant. Finally, this chapter forces a cognitive purge. You are learning to perceive weakness not as flaw, but as tool in others to leverage, in yourself to eradicate. Controlled severity begins with this internal mapping. The battlefield is populated by predictable men, and you are no longer one of them. Pleasers, reactors, performers. They will teach you without realizing it. But you must maintain distance. Observe. Do not imitate. Do not soften. Your discipline must remain surgical. By the end of this chapter, the viewer internalizes a critical truth. Mastery begins with understanding inferiority, not moralizing it. Survival and power demand precise recognition, the first step toward uncheckable presence. Severity is not loud. It does not announce itself. Yet it radiates a force that fractures perception and rewrites social hierarchies. This chapter proves why controlled severity unnerves everyone around you, drawing on history, human nature, and the anatomy of fear. Humans are wired to detect deviation. We are pattern seekers, trained by millennia of survival to identify anomalies. Every ripple in behavior triggers unconscious recalculation. Who is this? Can they be predicted? Are they safe? Most men conform because deviation is dangerous. It attracts scrutiny and threat. You, by contrast, are crafting deviation intentionally. Your restraint, your measured silence, your absence of need, these are anomalies that trigger the primal part of the brain, the part that weighs threat before logic. History offers endless proof. Alexander the Great did not intimidate through constant aggression. He controlled perception. His silence, his pauses, his unflinching demeanor made allies nervous, enemies cautious, and subordinates hyper-aware of their missteps. Genghis Khan's lethality was enhanced not by chaos, but by precise, surgical unpredictability, a controlled terror that made entire populations calculate every movement. The most effective men have always weaponized stillness and restraint. Loud aggression is easily countered. Quiet dominance cannot be anticipated. The herd, weak reactive men, are inherently unstable. Their minds seek instant gratification, approval, and visible emotion. When confronted with someone who does not conform to their rhythm, their instincts scream that something is wrong. Anxiety rises. Uncertainty mounts. They cannot model your internal state, and when they cannot model it, they fear it. Severity exploits this fear. It is a psychological pressure point. The more controlled you are, the more others strain to understand you. Their internal discomfort is your leverage. Every hesitation, every internal calculation they make is proof that you occupy a higher plane. They sense power in absence, authority in calm, and danger in restraint. This also applies to social dynamics. In office hierarchies, friendship networks, romantic entanglements, and even casual groups, predictable men dominate by volume and visibility. They speak too much, explain too much, overcommit. They are audible, consumable, digestible. You, with controlled severity, become inedible. Your silence is substance. Your absence is weight. Their reactions orbit your signal. They adjust, anticipate, and ultimately defer. Severity disturbs not because it threatens immediate action, but because it threatens certainty. When people cannot predict your reactions, they cannot leverage you, manipulate you, or control outcomes. Fear is born from uncertainty. Respect is born from calculated danger. The two often overlap in subtle ways that make your presence both magnetic and unsettling. At the personal level, this works because most men outsource discipline. They allow emotions to dictate timing, response, and visibility. You internalize discipline, making your mind a fortress. The herd reads your calm as threat because it reflects a level of control they cannot achieve. They are socially conditioned to mistake compliance for strength and internal mastery for danger. You exploit this cognitive misalignment. By the end of this chapter, the viewer must internalize that severe discipline is not about performing power. It is about generating invisible pressure that forces recalibration in everyone around you. You are no longer merely another man in the herd. You are a variable that disrupts it. Their fear, discomfort, and recalculation are tools. Your stillness is authority. Your restraint is a weapon. Discipline is not a habit, it is a weapon. By this chapter, you already understand the lens shift, the psychology, and the archetypes around you. Now you will learn how to engineer discipline, so ruthless that it reshapes both your mind and the environment. Ruthless discipline begins with internalization. Surface routines, gym schedules, diet adherence, these are superficial. True control is mental first. Every impulse, every emotional spike, every habitual reaction must be identified and cataloged. Your brain is the battlefield. Your nervous system is the front line. The first step is observation without compromise. Track what triggers loss of control, what causes premature emotional release, what fuels predictable reactions. You will find three categories: physical impulses, verbal impulses, and social impulses. Each one is a weak link. Each one must be contained. Next is delayed response. Most men react instantly because their survival scripts are socially oriented. Approval, avoidance of conflict, or immediate gratification. You will break this reflex. Delaying response is not hesitation. It is strategic calibration. The first time someone insults you, do not defend. The first time someone pressures you, do not yield. Allow tension to sit. The brain of the observer will fill the silence with speculation, uncertainty, and unease, all signals of leverage. Over time, this pattern conditions others to respect your boundaries without explicit assertion. The third principle is emotional subtraction. Smile less, excuse less, react less. Each suppressed micro-expression, each denied reassurance compounds psychological pressure. Humans naturally scan for emotional volatility. They measure signals like hunger, fear, and insecurity. When you remove these signals, you become unreadable. Unreadability is authority. It forces people to operate in your timeline, not theirs. Fourth, ritualize self-command. Discipline without ritual decays. You must build daily structures that are unyielding, observable only to yourself. Waking early, maintaining posture, practicing measured speech, scheduled reflection, these are not for productivity. They are for internal dominance. Each ritual signals to your nervous system that impulses are subordinate to strategy. Your body begins to anticipate restraint, making extreme control automatic rather than forced. Next is environmental conditioning. Your surroundings should reinforce discipline, not challenge it. Remove distractions that invite weakness. Social media, overexposure to reactive Peers, environments where emotion drives action. Replace them with environments that require measured response, silent study, observation of human behavior, controlled confrontation, solo, problem solving. Environment is a silent teacher. When it is calibrated, your discipline is multiplied. The fifth principle is strategic discomfort. A severely disciplined man is not comfortable, and he does not aim to be. Every action should strain impulse, sharpen awareness, and refine restraint. Skip indulgences that numb the mind. Seek scenarios that expose weakness, social tests, high-stakes negotiation, delayed gratification tasks. These create a feedback loop. The more you endure, the more internal authority grows. Every resisted urge is a micro-conquest. Finally, visible consequence. Discipline must manifest subtly in others. You are building influence through restraint. Observe how your silence amplifies tension, how your calculated absence forces reflection, how your calm redirects energy around you. These outcomes are evidence that your internal command has external effect. Discipline is now a systemic force. It shapes perception, response, and behavior without a single overt statement. Ruthless discipline is not a goal. It is a continuous process of internal dominance, behavioral calibration, and environmental shaping. It is surgical. It is unrelenting. You will notice over weeks and months a shift. People measure before acting. They hesitate before speaking. They sense your weight without acknowledgement. That is success. That is severe discipline in motion. By the end of this chapter, the viewer must see discipline not as a personal virtue, but as a tactical instrument. It is a quiet, lethal force that reprograms both mind and environment. To wield severe discipline, you must undergo total internal restructuring. Your old self, the man who seeks approval, who reacts, who softens in comfort, must die. This chapter dismantles every illusion of identity that weakens power, replacing it with a sovereign, ruthless presence. The first step is recognizing attachment. Your old self is anchored to validation, relationships, and predictable comfort. Each of these attachments is a leash. Pleasing others, defending your reputation, seeking camaraderie. These are behaviors that signal vulnerability. To survive in the arena of control, you must sever dependence. Emotional detachment is not apathy. It is sovereignty. When your behavior is no longer dictated by outside expectation, your internal command grows immeasurably. Next is eradicating predictability. The old identity reacts before it calculates. It explains before it measures. It responds emotionally rather than strategically. Every reaction it emits is a signal to the environment: I am readable. I am manipulable. Killing this identity means systematically suppressing reflexive responses. You train yourself to pause, observe, and execute. Only on calculated terms. Predictability dies. Only presence remains. Language restructuring follows. Your old self justifies. It apologizes. It explains. Words are not neutral, they carry emotional energy. Every explanatory phrase, every defensive statement, every reassurance reinforces the old identity. In its place, adopt surgical communication, brief, precise, and non-redundant. Speak to move outcomes, not to soothe egos. Let silence carry consequence. Words become instruments, not confessions. The third layer is emotional recalibration. The old identity experiences spikes: anger, frustration, excitement, guilt. Each spike diminishes power because it signals internal volatility. To kill the old self, you must master emotional gating. This does not mean suppression until numbness. It means timing, control, and purposeful expression. Anger becomes a lever, not a reaction. Frustration becomes a compass, not a broadcast. Pleasure becomes a reward, not a distraction. Each emotion is assessed, delayed, and deployed strategically. Behavioral rewiring is critical. Daily rituals, delayed gratification, calculated discomfort, and controlled interaction form the architecture of the new self. The old habits, instant response, people-pleasing, performative discipline are intentionally broken. The new self emerges in voids left by eradicated reflexes, pauses, silences, controlled gazes, deliberate gestures. Each void is filled with authority, each movement signals mastery. Social detachment is non-negotiable. Old identity thrives in networks, validation loops, and mutual reassurance. The new identity operates outside these loops. This is not isolation for loneliness. It is isolation for sovereignty. Relationships are recalculated. Who consumes energy without providing strategic value is removed. You will feel discomfort as old alliances fracture. That discomfort is a signal you are severing dependency. It is proof of internal evolution. Finally, integration of the new identity. This is not cosmetic change, it is structural. Your mind, body, and environment synchronize to communicate controlled severity. The new identity reacts only on terms it dictates. It observes, calculates, and executes. It is unreadable, unmanipulable, and unyielding. Old triggers no longer dictate behavior. Approval no longer dictates value. Comfort no longer dictates action. Sovereignty becomes instinct. By the end of this chapter, the viewer internalizes a ruthless truth. The man who existed before was a tool of circumstance, reactive and readable. That man must die. What replaces him is not simply better. It is fundamentally different, sharper, colder, and strategically sovereign. Every interaction thereafter confirms the shift. Every misstep by others reinforces authority. Discipline has become identity. Power is now embedded in being. Once you have forged severe discipline and killed your old identity, the world around you will change, comfort will evaporate, relationships will fracture, and alliances will be tested. This chapter is a final warning. True power isolates, and unease is the measure of influence. The first rule is accept isolation as currency. When you operate with controlled severity, predictable men will struggle to remain near you. They are conditioned to expect reactions, validation, and emotional cues. Your restraint denies them. They will distance themselves, question your motives, and seek easier targets. Do not chase them. Their discomfort is confirmation that your presence carries weight. Unease is leverage. The more others cannot predict you, the more authority you hold. Second is selectivity in alliances. Old networks rewarded comfort, not competence. New alliances are chosen based on utility, obedience to hierarchy, and resilience under pressure. Pleasers, reactors, and performers become irrelevant. You do not argue with weakness, you observe, exploit, and when necessary, remove it. Your social interactions are transactions of energy, not companionship. Each connection must either reinforce your sovereignty or be neutralized. Third, maintain consistent disruption. Controlled severity is not a one-time performance. It is a persistent state. Your presence must constantly generate recalibration in others. Silence, absence, delayed response, and measured action are repeated until patterns of submission form unconsciously around you. People should hesitate before acting, calculating the consequences of even minor interactions. This is not intimidation theater. This is environmental conditioning. Your calm should disturb, your stillness should dominate, and your restraint should dictate the emotional climate. Fourth is embrace irreversible transformation. The path you have chosen is isolating. Comfort, approval, and predictability are no longer options. Old friends may leave. Family may misinterpret your new persona. Social criticism will increase. These are unavoidable side effects. The disciplined, severe identity cannot negotiate with mediocrity. You must accept that power, demand sacrifice, emotional, social, and psychological. Unease is the price of sovereignty. Fifth, observe the feedback loop. Every moment of discomfort you provoke in others is confirmation that your internal command projects externally. Every hesitation, every recalibration, every subtle fear is a metric of your effectiveness. You are no longer reactive to environment. The environment reacts to you. Social hierarchies bend to your presence. Even without confrontation, influence spreads. Quiet authority is contagious, and unease is its signature. Finally, commit to lifelong application. This is not temporary discipline. It is permanent recalibration. Each day, reinforce rituals, refine restraint, monitor reactions, and purge residual weakness. The world will never accept you fully. You will never accept the world fully. This tension, this constant unease in yourself and others, is the engine of power. It is the marker of mastery. Only men who endure this constant discomfort can sustain influence, command, presence, and remain unreadable in a reactive world. The doctrine of unease is the apex of severe discipline. It is the understanding that comfort is weakness, predictability is death, and sovereignty requires perpetual friction. Your relationships, your reputation, and your environment will shift in response to your discipline. Those who cannot adapt will leave. Those who remain will respect or fear the presence you have cultivated. This is the final lesson. Power is not a gift. It is a consequence of consistent surgical control over self and environment. Unease is your mark on the world. Accept it, maintain it, and let it define every interaction moving forward.